world that nature has to offer in one lifetime. What a dream! To travel freely into the home of the wild ones, to live with them, to become so accepted by them that they hardly notice that you're there. That is not only my dream, that's my goal. I'm wildlife photographer Bill Porter, and I'll take you there.
I walked on the mountain and down by the sea. There I saw the man who shared this world with me. We share this world with wild ones, that's the way it's meant to be. We're also meant to save them, that's the power in you and me. I wandered down the valley, crossed to the other shore. There's wildlife all around us, birds and bees and so much more. We're always going to take some, that's the way it's meant to be. We're also meant to save them, that's the power in you and me. Well, I woke up to the sunrise, stood there at sunset too. Still I saw the wild ones, wish you had been there too. For with one touch of nature, the whole world had become kin. This message all around us, that's the way it's always been.
Wildlife Unlimited Foundation, thanking you for doing your part to keep our wildlife unlimited. I'm wildlife photographer Bill Porter, and I'll take you there. Sometimes they're cute. Sometimes they're beautiful. Other times they're simply amazing. But it's always exciting in the wonderful world of the wild ones.
I walked on the mountain and down by the sea. There I saw the many that share this world with me. Share this world with wild ones, that's the way it's meant to be. We're also meant to save them, that's the power in you and me. I wandered down the valley, crossed to the other shore. There's wildlife all around us, birds and bees and so much more. We're always going to take some, that's the way.
Bill Porter's Wildlife Unlimited show is brought to you by the Wildlife Unlimited Foundation and made possible by viewer support and your donations. To enter the domain of the bighorns, to live, if only for a short time, in this isolated place. Only a few have visited, and only a few of those stop long enough to sense the real feeling of being one in touch with the wild ones. Enjoying their home as only they know it. That's not only my dream, it's my goal. I'm wildlife photographer Bill Porter, and I'll take you there. I had visited these mountains 2 other times with my good friend Frank, who had been trying to convince me the spirit of Whiskey Mountain is an old prospector in a legend he had heard, the legend of Whiskey Mountain. And he had been passing that legend on to me little by little on our first 2 visits. On our first trip into the mountains, I found the baby bighorns I was looking for. But I also found the place so alive with wildlife, I just had to return to Whiskey Mountain and walk on that mountain again.
Mountain and down by the sea. There I saw the many that share this world with me. We share this world with wild ones, that's the way it's meant to be. We're also meant to save them, that's the power in you and me. I wandered down the valley, crossed to the other shore. There's wildlife all around us, birds and bees and so much more. We're always going to take some, that's the way it's meant to be. We're also meant to save them, that's the power in you and me. Well, I woke up to the sunrise, stood there at sunset too.
Still I saw the wild ones, wish you had been there too. For with one touch of nature, the whole world had become kin. With this message all around us, that's the way it's always been. We need to take some pleasure, for it's only ours to borrow. Take stock of this wild treasure for the children of tomorrow. I woke up to the sunrise, stood there at sunset too. Still I saw the wild ones, wish you had been there too. For with one touch of nature, the whole world had become kin. With this message all around us, that's the way it's always been. With this message all around us, that's the way it's always been.
On our second visit, I found still more wonders than time would allow me to photograph. So we are back again, this time hoping to see those magnificent rams, ram heads. How's that old saying go? You can tell the age of the boys by the size of their toys? Well, we had to have some fun before getting into the area frequented by animals. That feeling of not being alone is as strong now as it was the first time I was here. Maybe this will be the time I find out for sure why it's so strong. I know part of the feeling is the feeling of the unknown, but it's more than that. Is it the wild ones watching me as I watch for them? Like the cougars I've seen. Or is Frank right? Is there still the spirit of some old prospector in his burro roaming these mountains, helping some fool like me find his way from time to time?
This is the best place to watch for moose right here.
It's funny though, but have you noticed that all the moose we've seen seem to be chewing on just about anything edible?
That's true, but they seem to favor the willows down by the streams and the lakes.
They also graze on the willows in the summer, as well as the vegetation from under the water.
Sure looks like those long legs help them in the deep snow.
Well, they sure should, but moose still don't go far once the snow falls.
They don't use any more energy than what they have to this time of the year.
You know, it does take a lot of energy just to stay warm in these frigid conditions. Several moose usually herd together for the winter, which helps them keep the paths packed down so it's easier to move around.
Did you notice, Bill, that she's only got one calf? I thought Dan told us last time that twins are also common.
That's true. Twins are common, but triplets are almost unheard of. Not all calves make it through the summer.
What, predators or what?
That combined with diseases and accidents all present danger for the calves.
I'd say those bulls standing over there must be 7 feet high at the shoulders.
You told me earlier that they weigh up to 1,800 pounds, didn't you, Dan?
That's right, and about 10 foot long.
They sure do look different without their antlers.
Man, that's amazing. How they can lose them every winter and The old bulls grow a new set up to 6 feet wide in such a short time. I can't believe it. If they call a moose an elk in Europe, what would they call elk like these?
Well, they don't have elk as we know them in Europe.
Moose are the largest member of the deer family. But these Rocky Mountain elk are not small by any means. Moose is an American Indian word unique to North America.
You know, these bulls look to be about 5 feet tall at the shoulders.
And they should weigh about 750 to 800 pounds.
When do they lose their antlers?
Just before they migrate back up to the high country or somewhere along the way.
We didn't find these bulls and cows together in the spring. When do they split up?
Before they start back. See the way the bulls are starting to split off with bulls of their own size?
When do they start their migration anyway?
As soon as the snow melts. They follow as the melting snow goes higher up the mountain and the bugs come out when the temperatures get warmer.
So they go higher to the cooler temperatures to escape the bugs.
Yeah, that's one reason.
Hey, Frank! Hey! Tex! Ah, there's that old man again. They didn't even notice. Wonder what he's doing up here this time of year. Too bad he's down in those Aspens. Can't even drive there, or I'd catch up with him and ask him. But I'd better catch up with the guys. I finally caught up with you two.
Yeah, where the heck have you been anyway? We're looking all over for you.
I saw that old man again. I tried to stop you two, but you both were too far ahead of me.
I bet it was the old John trying to help you find those bighorns again, Bill.
Yeah, come on, I didn't see any bighorns.
There they are!
Where?
On that rocky ridge that sticks out down there.
They seem to be surprised that they're seeing us way up here.
They probably are. Not many people come up this high.
Looks like they have plenty of plants to eat, where the snow has melted off of the south side of the rocks.
That and the lichen.
Have you noticed how each older ram keeps his herd in an area all by himself?
It amazes me how they can get around with such ease, even when the snow is so deep. The bighorns sure seem to be thriving here.
It wasn't always that way. A lot of people in Du Bois, just at the foot of Whiskey Mountain, have done a great deal to change the laws and get habitat set aside to help make their comeback possible.
Hey, look! There's more over there!
A ewe and a lamb. The babies still have those fuzzy heads.
I heard mainly that it was their winter range that they needed protected.
That's right.
They also had to let some of the natural fires burn to clean some of the migration corridors so the bighorns could travel up and down the mountains.
You'd think, though, that the fires would burn up their food supply.
Now they do a little, but as I understand it, the grasses come back fast and green. But it's the thick undergrowth that grows into draws that chokes off the passageways. That's what nature usually removes by fire. Lightning has ignited fires and kept these corridors open for thousands of years. Man has yet to learn when not to interfere.
Hey, did you see a couple of those little ones butted heads? I'd really like to see some of those big rams go at it.
We may be just a little too late. Fall and early winter is the time when they do most of that.
You know, Frank, it might be a good time to catch us up on some more of that legend. You sure got me interested in that old prospector.
Well, that's a good story, Bill. You remember...
You know, I think I saw him again today. Have you guys seen him yet?
What he'd seen?
Have you seen him at all?
Well, I haven't, Bill, but he's not up here trying to help me. I think he's up here trying to help you, like he's helped so many people in the past.
You still think it's old John?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At least I don't know. Yeah.
You know, John had kind of disappeared from sight back then after the grizzly bear attack on Mabel. But years marched on and the stories just kept on growing.
I imagine like everything, you just keep getting bigger stories. That's probably what I was thinking.
I don't, you can call them stories, but till finally one day a fellow came down off that mountain and said that Mabel was dead. People wanted to know what happened, and he said he'd been up there hunting, and just by accident, more than anything else, he'd come on old John's camp. And he said that what he'd seen still had goosebumps on him.
Man, that must have been pretty scary. What was it?
Said it looked like a tornado had gone through that camp. There was pieces of blanket tarp everywhere, pots and pans, and everywhere he looked there was blood. Said he didn't know what really happened. He finally found old John.
But what happened to old John? Did he get hurt or did he?
Well, he couldn't tell whether John had been hurt or not. Said it didn't look like he'd really been hurt, but he was all covered with blood. He said whatever happened must have drove John right out of his mind because he was just sitting there mumbling to himself. Said he couldn't get through to him, but he said he listened, and talking about how all that gold didn't mean a thing with Mabel dead. Said that from what he could get of John's talking, that John had actually found the mother lode. He'd set up camp nearby and had supper cooking. Everything was nice and peaceful, and all of a sudden Mabel started fussing. And near as this fella could tell, Mabel must have smelled a mountain lion because John had set a lion and charged into camp. Well, it'd been a pretty lean winter. The fella figured that lion just wanted something to eat. But old Mabel must have figured that eating meant John. So she jumped in the way. Running there going after it tooth and claw. Well, it almost had to be. I don't know what else would have tore that camp up like it did. But you got to remember that Mabel was a lot older now than when she'd fought off that grizzly bear. And on top of that, her luck probably run out. Fight as she might, that lion killed her right there. Well, old John, you know, was a pretty big man. He was over 6 foot. And this fella couldn't tote him back down that mountain. So he left him up there and he went down for help.
Well, yeah, they were all supposed to be friends of John's, weren't they?
You bet they were, and back in those days friendship was more than just a word. And help he found plenty of, because every one of these fellas at one time or another had been befriended by old John. So there weren't no arguments. They saddled up the horses and back up that mountain they went. Now you got to keep in mind that all these fellas were mountain-bred men. They could follow a track when there weren't no track there.
Well, did they find old John or his campsite at least, or?
Well, they found the campsite, Bill. They never found that mother lode.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Apparently you camped beside the mother lode is what you were saying. And did the guys ever find the gold? Has the gold ever been found? Or?
No, they never found the gold. Old John was too smart for that. He camped nearby, but not right on it. So they never did find the mother lode, and they never did find any sign of old John. When they got up there to where they're sure the spot was that this fella told them about, there was no sign of John or any of his equipment. It had just vanished without a trace. But you know, that happened over 100 years ago, Bill. And yet, since then, to this very day, people come down off Whiskey Mountain and swear that they saw old John with Mabel on a lead rope. He's still out there, Bill.
Well,
He's still out there helping people like you with a good cause.
I gotta tell you, Frank, as many times as I've seen that old guy and that old girl and stuff, and it's always in the right place. It's made a believer out of me. I just wish I could see a picture of old John or Mabel.
Hey, now that you mention it, I almost forgot to show you. I made a copy of a sketch I found in a book in the library. I wanted you to take a look at it. Here.
Well,
Is
what
this
do you
the guy
mean
you've
you
seen?
found a sketch? I can't believe it. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and seeing is believing. Well, say no more. I'm seeing, and I'm believing. By the way, let's go back to that area where I saw that old man and see if we can see him again. He's not there, but there's the bighorns, and those rams look aggressive.
Boy, it looks like those two are headed for a showdown, Bill.
There's another ram there. They'll kick and shove for the test of strength.
Look, it's a ewe watching them. Wow, what a sight.
Boy, I'll say.
The ewe is moving back by the herd.
You know, but she'll only mate with the winner. The strongest will carry on its genes. Well, Frank, I've always believed that memories are the essence of life. I'm sure the memories of our trips to Whiskey Mountain will enhance our lives forever. And we'll never forget the legend of Whiskey Mountain.
There's a story told on Whiskey Mountain about a man named John, a legendary prospector from 1821. No one knew where he came from or if he had some kin. They only knew the mother lode was what he hoped to win. They say old John knew Whiskey Mountain like the backside of his hand, 'cause most his life he'd tramped its slopes, scorned the bottomland. He never had too much to say, yet he'd stand out in a crowd. With beard of white, clear blue eyes, near 6 feet tall and proud. A friend to all old-timers say, he'd turn his back on none. Though many offered him a home, he shunned them, every one. For the man known only as Old John preferred no human's table. He walked alone, his thoughts of home, Whiskey Mountain, and old Mabel. Now Mabel meant a lot to John. She'd saved his life, you see. She'd fought and killed a grizzly bear, and what a sight to see. The fight had been a vicious one as John lay like a stone. His head had landed on a rock, cut it to the bone. An old grizzly bear, he bit and clawed, chewed at Mabel's head. He almost ripped off Mabel's ear. It healed, but flopped half dead. The joke is, Mabel's just a burro. She stands but 5 hands tall. Sometimes you can be a giant when your back's against the wall. With a loaded pack upon her back, clanging pots and pans, she'd scared that big old grizzly bear. He'd turned around and ran. But running on a mountain trail just makes no sense at all. 1,000 feet to the rocks below, Mabel watched him fall. Yeah, Mabel won the fight that day. She'd saved her man, old John. Tooth and claw had scarred her face, but she looked like an angel to John. From that day on, old John and Mabel were harder to be seen. For some had laughed at Mabel's scars. How could any be so mean? But though the whole world laughed at them, to themselves the two stood true. And every now and then they'd help some fool like me or you. Someone perhaps who'd lost his way on a whiskey mountain slope, who'd fallen down upon his knee, given up all hope, when from the teardrops in his eye, through the mist he'd see the ghostly form of a man in a burro. So he got up off his knees. He can't explain what happened. There was no sound he'd say. He only knows that John and Mabel had pointed out the way. Time marched on, the land grew, until one day it said, someone came down off Whiskey Mountain to say that Mabel was dead. He'd come by chance on old John's camp, found a frightful mess. Pots and pans lay everywhere, all covered with blood red. He'd found old John upon a rock, nearly out of his head. Said he talked about the mother lode, how his Mabel was dead.
Mabel dead.
He'd set up camp near the mother lode, had meat and beans a-fryin'. When Mabel started in to fuss, she'd smelled a mountain lion. The lion charged right into camp, his only thought was eat. Guess Mabel thought that that meant John, so she turned around to meet him. But fate was not as kind this time as with the grizzly bear. Though Mabel fought with all her might, the lion killed her there. So friends of John climbed Whiskey slopes, searching for the place. There was no sign of any camp, it had vanished without a trace. Yet to this day someone will say, how high on Whiskey slope, vaguely through the mist he'd seen old John with Mabel on a roll.